This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, perfect. I welcome everybody to this special meeting of council talking about the Municipal Service Corp. And if I can get a mover and a seconder, please, to open up the meeting. Peter and Belinda. Okay, so that is moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that we do call this special meeting of council to order on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021 at 6 p.m. All in favor? And that's carried. And approval of the agenda, if I can get a mover and a seconder for that as well, please. Belinda and John. Moved by Belinda Kistemaker, second by John Paroff. Be it resolved that council does hereby approve the agenda as presented. And can I get a vote for that to those in favor? Okay, and that is carried. Okay, I just want to announce just right now, Councillor Drago Stefanik did give his regrets, and I do want to announce that our previous regular council meeting as well, he did have regrets as for that too, so we do miss him, and hopefully he'll be back soon. And we're continuing on with item number 4 is disclosure of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof, declaration of conflict of interest. And council, you can do that now, anytime throughout the meeting, if you see a conflict or the item arising. There being none right now, we'll continue on to item number 5, and that's the discussion. So council, you've got really well organized documents in front of you. I'm going to go through them in order that are listed in your agenda package. So the first one is the mission and vision. I'm wondering, Gail, did you want to speak to anything before we start the discussion?
Just a couple of things. Thank you. When I was speaking with legal counsel, he said that once we have all the draft documents that are ready to go, it will probably take a week to 3 weeks to do the incorporation. So I'm hoping to bring final documents to the February 17th meeting so we can get this going. And you'll see a draft bylaw on there. There may be, things you want to add to it or take out of it. It's just somewhere to start. I think it's pretty good, but I think there might be a couple other things you might want to think about putting in there. And I'm hoping that after this meeting, it would be nice to be able to start advertising for the board members once you agree to the, shall we say, job description for that position, so that by the time the board's formed, or sorry, by the time the incorporation's done, you can have your board members up and running, and council can look at appointing those members as well. So just trying to make everything flow together. So I don't really have anything specific to say about the documents except the mission, the mission and vision. Just a starting point for you, something to think about. And then the objectives, we sort of took out of the business plan as well as the housing needs and demand study. Certainly, I'm sure we didn't capture everything, but again, just somewhere to start. So
okay, thank you, Gail.
Welcome.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can definitely accommodate that tonight as we go through all the documents. And so we'll just note when we look at the board of directors, if we are good with that description and everything, that we'll be giving authorization for Gail to put out the signage and the notice to call for board of directors. Okay, so let's start with the mission and vision, and I'll open the floor to council and see if what's here has captured what we're looking at doing, and if there's anything additions or anything that we need to add. So if you, it's the first on 5.1, it's your first document. John, sorry, I have your mutes. You're good to go.
Yeah, I think it's great. I like it. I think it captures what we have. Can we also notice that in the future, the board itself, the Management Service Corp, Housing Corp, has the ability to modify this at a later time if need be? Or is this something that's focused on the council will do?
My understanding is that it should be council driven because we're setting it up and they need to follow the priorities of that, but then they have a full scope of how they want to implement it. But would that be the correct answer, Gail?
That's my understanding as well. Stacy, is that your understanding? The council's to set the mission and vision and the objectives, and then the board is to in place to carry out, set the strategy and carry out the objectives of council. Yeah, okay.
Very good, thanks. I like it anyways. I think it's great.
Okay, any other councillors for the mission and vision of the Housing Corp? Everyone's good. Okay, the only thing that a couple of things was, are we good with the name Hornpain Housing Corporation? I've been calling it that just for the sake of, because there's nothing else. Does that fit? Does that capture what we're doing? Yes?
Yeah, I like it. Did you come up with it by yourself?
Well, we're in Hornpain, it was housing. It was brilliant. Thanks, John.
Sorry, I think it's
Okay, it's good. Okay, so that was the first. The only thing was, I just wonder if we just take out on the mission to strive, just take the two right out, just to strive continually to improve, maybe change the two. I know that's kind of nitpicky, but it was, I have to turn on a light here because I'm in the dark a little bit here. Yeah, I think it's to strive to continually improve.
How about to continually strive? Would that be better?
To continually strive.
to
To improve?
Yeah, or just to strive continually to improve. Just put the two behind continually. Does that make sense?
I think that sounds a bit awkward myself, but.
Oh, does it? Okay. I'm going the reverse, but Gail, you are the experts.
I think it's better to put continually strive because you're describing how you're going to strive.
Okay, to continually strive to improve that way.
That's what I think sounds best. What does everybody think?
Yes, I agree with your comments, Gail.
Okay, so we'll just switch that around. And I love that you put the geographical center of Ontario in there. We have to start including that. And the only other was the last sentence. I had supports new development, comma, growth, and sees challenges as opportunities.
I like that.
Is that? People good with that, council? It's just a little change. I just thought it just had a more positive spin on it. That was all.
Yeah.
Okay. Third question, are we going to be looking at incorporating that this get reviewed every time there's a term of council strat plan or something so that it lines up with their mission and vision for the community?
Yes, we can. I'm just trying to think where that would go. I'll figure it out and we'll put it where it belongs.
Yeah, because it should go somewhere just so it's an automatic thing, yeah? Okay,
Sure.
go ahead, Belinda. Councillor Kistemaker.
Somewhere in the plan, it talks about it, this being looked at every 5 years. Maybe we can look at it at that point, right?
Yeah, that's in the asset transfer policy. Go ahead, Councillor Paroff.
In some, or if not most corporations, they would have a policy to review, at least minimalistically look at it and review it annually at a board meeting. Whether this change is made or not, it doesn't matter, but everybody should be aware. It should be something that's ingrained in the senior management of this new corporation. They should know what their mission and vision statement is all the time. So it should be, I would recommend, or I would suggest maybe that annual board meetings, it would be just reviewed.
Oh, I like that, John. I really like that. It will create focus in on it. Go ahead, Gail.
Well, I agree with that, but I think also council, like you said, has to, because they're setting the mission and vision, I think they should also, as you suggested, review every term of council just to ensure it does align. They say the board would keep themselves familiar with whatever it is that council approves.
Yeah, for
So on
sure.
both sides.
And we could do something like generally, like just so that if there was ever another municipal service corp, that just comes up, that the mission statement, the mission and vision follow whatever council setting. Okay, so are we, the board reviewing the mission and statement, that would be in their procedure, or would that be in their annual reporting?
I think it would be fall under, I'm not sure which bylaw, but there's a place for, I'm sure it's in one of them. I'm sorry, I did these a couple of weeks ago, so.
No, that's all right. Why don't we just keep a sticky note, and then when we come
Yeah,
to it,
there's a-
we'll place it in.
There's annual report under bylaw 1, 3.09. So we could somehow slip it into there, I'm sure.
Okay, sounds good. Good suggestion, John. Okay, so are we done then with mission and vision? We're going to start this off. This is okay. So we're going to move on then to the objectives of the corporation. So just to reiterate, we set the name, we did the mission and the vision. That's done. The housing objectives. So they're not numbered, they're lettered. So I open the floor up to council on those. I did have a question for item A, Gail. Is there a housing strategy master plan that there's an example of that a community has, or that a...
I have never seen one, but Stacy has kind of done more research in that area. I'm not sure, Stacy, if you've seen one. I'm sure we could find one.
Yeah, so I have a few examples of other housing corporations that have done a master plan when they set up their corporations.
Okay, so that'll be exciting work for the board, right? Because they'll have those documents, eh? I like it. No, I did use the word exciting, council. Okay. Any comments on the objectives? When I was looking at them, I was wondering if we could group them in just for clarity, so it's easier to look at of what fits together. So I did B, C, D, and H were all talking about diversifying the housing market. And then M, N, O was all like maintenance repairs. And then there was education. Like I was just trying to find a common theme through the ones that were listed and then putting them under headings under that. Just
Yeah, I had mentioned that. I don't know if I mentioned that in my email or not, but I didn't really spend too much time on that at the time, but definitely they need to be rearranged, and I don't know if you want to call it prioritized or grouped together, but definitely needs to be pulled together.
yeah. And I wasn't sure what I wasn't sure what I meant to investigate shared housing opportunities.
So shared housing opportunities was something, I think, John, you might have been at that session too at Roma last year. And it was, it's where a group of people, and it was seniors that they were talking about at the time, but they all buy into a house and they share common spaces, but they each have their own bedroom, but they each actually have, they could have their own mortgage section, and it's just set up like a share, like shares is what it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Mhm.
Oh, that's interesting. So would you have in your bedroom like your own, like it would be a bedroom with an ensuite?
I don't remember. I guess you could have whatever you wanted. I think this was just bedrooms, and they shared kitchen facilities, living room, and washroom, if I'm not mistaken. I suppose, I mean,
Okay.
you could build whatever you wanted, I suppose, but I think that's how it was set up.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I think it was more for socialization and for safety, and so, you know, people didn't get lonely, things like that.
Right. Yeah. Is there any other comments? I have my head down here from council. No, we're good. Okay. Yeah, the other heading that I had was seniors. It was I and J. I wasn't sure where G fit in with homelessness. I wasn't sure if that could be under, I had P as education. I wasn't sure if finding solutions to homelessness, and that could be with P as well. I wasn't sure. And then E, F, K, and L, I didn't have any category. And the only other thing that I had saw was, I just have it here, create partnerships and collaboration opportunities.
As another objective, you mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have my note.
Sorry, what was that? To create partnerships
and collaboration opportunities.
okay. I was just
I
thinking.
had it in between O and P, so I might have been just adding it to to O, maybe. I'm just trying to read what it says here. Oh, maybe it was a secondary heading, Gail. Sorry, that's what it was, because M, N, and O are maintenance and repair, but it's also they're creating partnerships because you have to, there's many players at play.
Okay. And I was just thinking the ones that you were mentioning, the obtaining funding, establishing the fund, finding solutions could be, you know, research or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. And then A, I didn't have anything for where to put the master plan, so those might all fit in a in a pillar.
I would suggest that maybe number O doesn't necessarily even fit within a specific objective to the management service corp.
Well, I think that came out of discussions from if we were to set up a trade school, if there was some sort of collaboration there. And then also, I remember it was hinted at or brought forward at maybe having a board at one of the businesses that had that as well. So I don't know if this is a space that, were we thinking of having it in the project manager's office? The board, like where that would go?
That came up with the housing strategy.
Housing strategy.
forum. Yeah.
Was one of the, it stemmed from one of the recommendations, but
Yeah.
as far as where it would be, we didn't really, I mean, we had discussed at the meetings that we had, we discussed the hardware store as a possible place, but we never pursued that or went any farther with that.
I personally think you should just leave it in there because it was brought up and it was in the housing study and it was a recommendation.
Yeah, I agree. I have to agree with that. Just because it was a recommendation, and I think there's a need for it.
Yeah,
It's-
I believe there is.
Yeah. And it could be, you know, there are a lot of heavy workload in this objectives, and that might be, it could be a low hanging fruit one if it was to get established right away. And that's not putting any pressure on any future board members out there. Okay, is there any other things on this objectives that we're missing? Is there anything that's shouting out to you that we're missing? And is this going to be reviewed as well, Gail, by a council?
It likely should be as time goes on.
Okay, and then I guess at this point too, the board, if they see that there's objectives that they could meet underneath their mission and vision, they could see if council would agree to that at the time, if there was a mechanism for that as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a reporting mechanism in there, and I can't remember if I've suggested quarterly or semi-annually or whatnot, but that could be the time, or if there's going to be 2 council reps on the board, so there should be an open line of communication there as well, back to council. So I think if there is something, it could be communicated either of those ways.
Okay, and could it too also at a board meeting, could the board make a resolution and then forward it to council that way as well? Like if there was something that had come up?
I think that would be a good thing to do. Then there's a paper trail, formal paper trail.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that reporting. I think it was annually.
There is annually, but I thought there was another thing, or if there's not, you can put in, I can't remember because there's so many documents. There is an annual report, but I thought there was something in there. Sorry, I should have reviewed this again, but I ran out of time.
No, that's all right. We're doing it right now. We're good.
It's a good measuring tool.
Yeah. You're talking about the annual report, Belinda, as a measuring tool, or
like the objectives? Your objectives are a good measuring tool.
definitely. So I think too, they should be, just as council would review the mission and vision of theirs when there's a council changeover, and then the same thing they should be reviewing at some, it doesn't have to happen immediately. Like if they do their mission and vision, and then, you know, a few meetings later, they can review this and the objectives and everything, so it all fits together. I wouldn't want to overwhelm a brand new council.
No, and then they'll have to get used to, you know, just the organization and the operations to begin with. So
Yeah.
it would be good to give a little bit of time.
Yeah, because once this is established and it's up and running, we might see other avenues, like the public might see other avenues that it could be used for too, right? So, okay, so are we, do you need any more guidance, Gil, on subdividing them, or?
No, I'm good. And I can add in, if there's nothing in the documents, I can add in a quarterly report if there's not one there, if you'd like. I thought there was, though.
It might be good for the first couple of years, maybe the first 3, and then it can be readjusted.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't want to overload with reporting either, but then annual seems a little long too, right? How does council feel on that? Annual, quarterly, semi-annually?
I would go with the annually myself.
Annually, John? Okay. Okay. Do we want, go ahead, Peter, Councillor Kissinger?
I would agree with John annually.
Annually, okay. Belinda, what do you think about that? We can leave it as annually?
I'm not sure.
Not sure? Well,
Well, don't forget, you're going to have 2 council members on there.
Just Yeah, there's 2 council members. That's true. So if there's anything that they're concerned about it, they can bring it up.
Or
Which
ask
is
for a report.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, they could do that. You could all, like at a meeting, you could always bring a report to
Yeah.
the board could actually say exactly what they want to report, and one of the counselors could bring it. Like if there was something that they wanted to talk about or whatever. But the formal mechanism will be annually. Okay. Okay, any other objectives that are jumping out at you that are missing? We'll start with these then. And Gail will organize them a bit differently for us. Okay, I don't see any other. So now we're on bylaw number 1. I'm wondering, just in the title, Gail, do we need to push Hornpain Housing Corporation under a bylaw, under that sentence?
Yeah, I'll put the housing corporation at the top.
Okay.
Is that what you mean?
No, I was just looking at the second one. It had bylaw number 2, and then it had the bylaw relating to blah, blah, blah. And then it had housing corporation.
Yeah, the housing corporation should really be on the top, completely on the top.
Okay.
And
So
then
it should
bylaw
go together.
number 1, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I was just looking at trying to keep them all so they stay similar. Yeah,
Yep.
consistent. Thank you for that. The other question I had before I open up the floor to council was for Gail. Should we create a definitions? Would it be an actual bylaw for the corporation? Because we have several definitions and all, like if we just take them all out of the bylaws, but have a definition so that they follow the same ones?
Well, I think that would be unusual. Normally the definitions, sorry, my ear thing. Normally the definitions go with each bylaw or policy. I mean, we
Okay.
can do that if you like, but this would be the normal way to do it.
This is okay. I was just wondering, like,
Yeah.
so that when the board's utilizing these, that definition's the definition if we've defined it.
Mhm.
Like,
You can, but
sorry, let me
I think-
rephrase that. If you're, say the definitions from bylaw number 1, but you're looking at bylaw number 3, it doesn't necessarily have the same meaning as whatever was defined in bylaw number 1. It would have to be defined in that other bylaw as well.
Well, generally, I think most of them are the same. I don't know if you're thinking something specific. There might be the odd thing that's different. Is there something that you noticed?
No, I was just wondering of the, like, as it rolls out when you're sitting there as a member, a board member.
I
That
think they're pretty consistent, but
Okay.
I mean, we can do that if that's what you'd like to do. It's just, it would kind of be an
No,
unusual thing to do.
it's good that way. Councillor Paroff, go ahead.
Your bylaw definitions would typically be specific for that document, because in case when you have a definition, you're talking about what's in that document, right? It may not necessarily apply 100% in every case. Like it may be read differently in different documents, right? So you just gotta be careful not to get too generalized.
Yeah,
Okay.
that does happen sometimes, you're right?
Okay, that was my only question on that. So I'll open up the floor to council. So we're on bylaw number 1, and this is the conduct of the affairs. And do we have any comments or concerns from council on we'll just start with section 1, interpretation. So I'm on page 3 and page 4 with the definitions. The only concern that I had, Gail, was that for board member, because we use, where did we see it? We call them directors, but we don't have a definition for director. But it says board member means an individual appointed to the board by the council of the Township of Hornpain. So my question was, we're appointing the board, the directors, correct? The 5, and then the board themselves appoints their own officers and that sort of things to the board.
Yes.
So then, so I'm thinking there must be a definition for board director and board member, like, because they would be all board members then, right? But the directors are the voters.
Well, I'm thinking there's probably just an interchangeable, just off the top of my head, because the officers would not necessarily be a board member or a director. So if you appointed somebody from whatever the street to do a specific duty, so just say the treasurer, but they're not on the board, that would be an officer. But I think anybody who's appointed would be considered a director or a member. I should probably just make it one or the other. Like if
Okay.
it switches back and forth, it's probably just not intentional.
Okay, so wherever there was board member in the document, it was talking about like the directors, like the 5
And
directors.
actually, yes, yeah.
Okay, I think I'd like to put it as director, so
Directors?
it's just because membership could be, I just see people interpreting that as members of the board, like just as a general term. Go ahead, Councillor Paroff, go ahead.
The definition 2 above it says board, means the board of directors of the corporation.
Yeah, I think it was just an inconsistency through the, I didn't really do the fine tuning. I was just trying to get the meat and potatoes of it. So
Yeah,
like I can definitely make those align, make it all director.
okay. That was my only, because I wasn't sure, because in some places I was reading board member and I wasn't sure if that was a director or did it mean an
Right.
officer? That's where it was kind of creating a bit of,
Okay, good that you picked up on that.
yeah. And I have the question right here. Can we appoint others besides directors? And
Yeah,
we
you
don't,
can.
right? The council,
You could, but you could appoint officers. Well, the board would appoint officers if they wanted. that
right?
were
the
non-voting.
Okay. But the council, like us here at this table, could only appoint the directors to that board, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, the other one was Council of the Township of Hornpain means a duly convened quorum of, can we just change it to council? Because it says the designated number of councillors. Or am I just included in that as am I included as mayor as a councillor?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, is there any other comments on page 3 and 4? Okay, I don't see any. We'll move on to page 5. The rest of the definitions are on, oh. Yeah, we have more definitions on page 5. Okay, I'm on 1.02 interpretation council. I do have one question, Gail. Is it better for us if we just go to plural for inclusivity? Just go to plural, like them, themselves, they, instead of he or she?
We can do that if you like. I've noticed in a lot of the documents I've read now, they all have, like all the contracts we do have a statement that'll say any reference to singular includes plural, and it's just a blanket statement. But if that's what you
Yeah.
prefer, we can certainly do that.
No, that's what you have in here. I just wanted to ensure that it followed, because in our strat plan, we said we were going to be an inclusive government. And if that shows inclusivity, I'm good. I was just wondering.
I think based on what I've seen, it seems to be okay, but it's totally up to you.
Okay, no, I'm good with it unless council has any issues. Okay, so let's continue on down the page 5. Any other sections in there that you want to talk to or speak at for council? Excuse me. I just have one for 2.04. Gail, area of operations. The board will need permission to do that, to go outside of the boundaries from council.
Sorry, where were you?
2.04, right on the bottom of page 5. It's that whole section. It's area of operation. And it's except when it is necessary to do so outside those boundaries for the benefit of the township of Hornpain and its citizens. Or maybe just clarify.
I have the wrong bylaw in front of me.
Oh,
I was confused. I'm like,
okay.
what?
We're gonna
204,
take just a second. Are we all on the same page? I actually got to use that where it really means something.
We are literally, yeah.
Literally.
Okay, that's good. I was like, oh, what did I do? Okay, corporations powers within the geographic boundaries except when it's necessary outside.
Or does that mean for like if they were going to like a conference or something, or if they were going to a trade show or
You know
some
what?
sort of...
I don't even know if you really need that in there. That was something I took out of another one, and maybe it's meant more for communities that are closer together.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I mean, unless you had a meeting outside of the township, like, I don't know why you would ever have a board meeting where you're actually doing business, you know, whatever, at the lake
Right.
or whatever, like, why would you do that? So you maybe don't even need that.
Okay.
I think it's about the operation of the corporation. So if we're doing activities within the geographic boundaries, and if they want to do a building or something outside of those boundaries, they'd have to come back to council because it wouldn't be in line with the vision.
Maybe.
But it only says that the board would have to give its approval, prior approval. That's where I was like, well, they'd need to come back to council because they're not going to build anything outside of our municipality without council's approval.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Councillor Paroff. Go ahead. Jump in here.
you might not want to get into a situation where down the road, the Hornpain, the board wants a development just outside of the municipality boundaries, and they can go off and do whatever they want without consulting the township because it's outside the boundaries, right? You don't want to get into that position.
And there'd be no tax revenue either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you don't want the management service corp to be going off doing things that the municipality doesn't really approve of.
So could we change in the last sentence, instead of the board, put council, that council has given its prior approval by resolution? Because I'm thinking there might be areas where it's not necessarily a building, but say it's a meeting, say there's I don't know, a housing, like trade show or something. That would be some of its, where is it calling here? Exercise its powers. Like they might go to something like that. Would that fit? That might fit within its objectives?
I don't know if they would be exercising their power, but it's not going to hurt, I think, to put in there that if they do choose to exercise or do wish to exercise their powers outside the boundaries, then it comes back to council, and then you're covered.
Okay. Okay, so you'll fix that up so we're covered, that it comes back?
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're done with page 5 then, council? Yeah, okay, so we'll move on to page 6 of bylaw number 1. I have nothing on this page. Poor Gail. You know I'm not nitpicking you, right, Gail? Just try to get like,
No, that's fine.
Okay,
That's what,
okay.
it's just a starting document. That's a draft.
yeah, okay. So council, any comments on page 6? Councillor Paroff?
No, I'm fine with page 6.
Okay. Okay, there's Belinda or Pete. Do you have any items for page 6? We'll move on to page 7. Belinda, are you going to move on? Yep. Okay, so page 7, it talks about board minutes. So we'll definitely see those. That's good. So we'll have notification there. This is the annual report. I was just wondering about the date. I just found June 30th late in the year. What was the reasoning for that?
I think just giving, oh, sorry, Stacy, go ahead.
It's usually when the audit's done. So the year end is December, and usually the audits were done by June. So usually the AGM for the corporation, the HDC in the past was June 30th, just to give the auditors time.
Okay. Okay, so I'm guessing then, like, not guessing, I want to ensure then, so when they're doing their budget for the corporation, that'll fall in line with our budget stuff though, right? Yeah, I'm getting a nod. Okay, good. Okay, that was my concern. I didn't want it. Any other questions on the annual report section? Does that fit? Okay, I think we're good with that. We've talked about the council board directors that are going to sit on there, and then the annual report plus the minutes. We'll be well informed at council, I think. Okay, section 4. The only thing on here I have is just to switch out this is where I had the directors and members. Okay, we'll move on to page 8. So you had a section in here highlighted, Gail. Did you want to speak to that? 4.06?
Actually, I'm hoping Stacy can shed a little bit of light on that, because we had talked earlier about maybe wanting to stagger the board terms so that there's always somebody with some experience on the board. But and she said the HEDC does that. I'm just not sure of what the layout is or the setup is. So I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind speaking to that, Stacy. You have any suggestions specifically?
So a 3-year term potentially could be a full changeover of your 3 community members. So potentially the board members, maybe for the first term, should be a longer term, but maybe the 3 community members can be staggered. And we could potentially do that with council as well, because there's a 4-year term. So will those council members sit on the board for 4 years? Or do you want to switch out your councillors after 2 years? But you don't want to switch your whole committee in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
So have staggered terms. So we've had that in the past where some terms are 2-year terms and some are 1-year terms.
I really like that idea. I actually have that on my note here on the side, that we should have staggered terms for the 3 directors, the 3 community directors. Do we want to just set it up 1, 2, and 3?
We can.
Is that work for council? And council, we can decide at council if we want to change up, if someone wants to change up, that might be another topic of discussion at council about our portfolios. Councillor Paroff, you have a comment? Go ahead.
I didn't understand the last comment, 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, sorry, the year's terms. So you would be, if, where was it? On the previous page, it talked about the number of members. So we're looking at a 5-member board of directors. So 2 will be council members and then 3 will be community members that apply to the board. And then in that application, they can apply to a year, the 1-year term or the 2-year term or the 3-year term. And then you're always rotating your board. Is 1 year too short? What are you thinking, John? Tell me what you're thinking.
I'm thinking the 1-year term is a little too short. If somebody wants to get off a board after 1 year, there's avenues to do that, not to have to go through the elect a new board member or appoint a new board member, have some formal thing like that. I like staggering it. I think sounds like a really good idea, but commit to either 3 or 4-year term or something. I mean, let them get their feet wet and develop a system while you're on the board, right?
Do we want to have them, just a second, Gail, do we want to have them 3-year terms, but the first ones are 1st, 2nd, and 3? And then when the first one comes up, it would be up for renewal and that person could apply for that position again? And it would be only the first 3, and then that way they'd all be staggered? Peter's shaking his head. Did I say that right? Would that work, Stacy, what I'm trying to say?
Can you say it again?
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm getting confused looks. I know I'm not saying right. Because we want to stagger, if we were to stagger a 3-year term, so each community board member had 3 years, but we don't want them all coming in on the same time. So for the initial call, we call for a 1-year term, a 2-year term, and a 3-year term. But after that initial call, it goes to a 3-year term. Like, so that year 1 would end up going to a 3-year term after, and they would end up being the longest one after. Go ahead, Gail.
I like that concept, but I think 1-year term, I'm not sure who said that, maybe Councillor Paroff. I think 1 year is a bit short for someone to get familiar with things and really, well, I guess feel useful, because they'll just be learning everything and then it'll be time to leave.
So do we want to do a 2, 3, and 4? Go ahead, Councillor Kistermaker, Peter.
I like what you were saying, Madam Mayor. The 3 years, 1, 2, and 3, and it's just for the initial first 3 years. You're going to have it staggered, and then you could potentially have someone coming back to back. But yeah, you have a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year term just initially, and then know that going into it. And like you said, after that first year is up, you can nominate yourself, or if you want, if the person wanted to stay, but that will automatically stagger. It's the only way to get into that staggered pattern. A 3 year term seems ideal if you're going to stagger them like that.
And so, thank you for that, Peter. So I'm thinking too, then, if someone was to vacate their board position and we had to fill that board position, they would take the length of that vacated term initially?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Do you think that's doable? I'm looking to the staff. Does that, because the other option is we could take the 1 year term out and do a 4 year term right off the hop. I don't know if we get anybody to sign up for a 4 year term. We all did. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Perron.
Just because you sign up for a 4-year term doesn't mean you're absolutely held to it. I mean,
That's
if you choose not to, the 4-year term is just so all the paperwork of having to elect a new board member, you don't have to deal with it every year, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
So I guess I think okay, first of all, first one is, we want a staggered board? We want a staggered terms on the board?
yes.
Yes, okay. So the second one is to gain staggered board members or community directors is we can either do the 1, 2, 3, or we can do the 2, 3, 4. I'm kind of weighing to 2, 3, 4, just because then we don't have to deal with this for another 2 years of advertising. Go ahead, Councillor Paroff.
If we made it a little simpler and just said council is on the board for the term of their council term, the 4 years, they're
Mhm.
appointed to that board. The other is the people from the public are there for the 3 years. Every 3 years, they get recycled or get reelected.
But then we'd end up with 3 all at the same time, no? We wouldn't have a staggered
Mhm.
board then.
Well, no, because even if the board started this year, the 2 councillors from this term, these 5 of us here, will only be sitting on that MSC board for 1 year.
Right, but then when the community directors come up, the 3 of them will could be replaced all at one time.
No, they'd all, oh, I see what you mean. You don't want the 3 replaced at the one time.
Yeah, we want to stagger it. That's where I was at. Let's get consensus here. Peter's on page with staggering. Okay. Yeah, we were just trying to figure out how to stagger it, just so we don't leave our board handicapped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking, do you want to stagger it everybody, one person each year? Or do you want to stagger it like the terms could be, you could lose 2 or 3 board members 1 year and still be okay?
Yeah. I think it's just the community directors we were concerned. Like when you have, I like your idea of just committing the term of council for the councillors' positions. And then anytime at council, we can discuss that about portfolios. And then it's just the community directors to ensure that there's a good turnout, not that we're not crippling the board all at once.
Okay.
So it would be, so say we set it up now, you would have next year possibly 2 new council members. And then you would have 1 new community director if we did the 2-year. And then you'd still have a community director for another year. And if we did the 4-year, you'd still have another one for another 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Am I complicating this? Sorry,
Right.
John.
It sounds to me like it is, yeah, but as long as it's written out, it works fine.
Yeah. So what would you suggest, either Gail or Stacy, of should we go with the 1 year or the 2-year, or just to set that up so it rotates properly? Go the 2? So 2, 3, 4?
2, 3, 4 sounds better right now because council potentially could change and it's going to be just setting up the board. So 1 year isn't going to get the whole corporation running smoothly quite yet, I don't think.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go with that then. And then Gail, as long as we're good with the director positions after. Go ahead, Gail.
So one thing that could be an issue is when council changes, and if there are 2 new councillors, you'll lose 3 that year, just to keep that in mind. If on a council, on an election year, do you want to have one of the community members changed out? I know that's kind of complicated, but then you're only left with 2 community members, one who may have only been on for a year at that time.
But you're not going to win in every case. There's going to be times when something like that is going to take place anyways, where you have 3 maybe even 4 board members that decide to leave all at once for whatever reason.
Yeah, maybe I'm just thinking maybe we should just advertise for the 3-year term, and then at the first board meeting, the directors themselves can decide their length of term, and then we can put that there needs to be a board member for a new board member for 2023, 24, and 25, and then skip a year. How does that work?
So
Go ahead,
what
Gail.
if you elect for 3 and then
Yeah.
you set for the first term, and then after that 3 years, you could do your 2, 3, 4. Like you could set that right out here if you wanted to. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that you need an election for, so just so that what you have just said, Gil, happens. I agree that you
Yeah.
have the 3 community members not switching, and then council doesn't have to deal with appointing people when they first got on council, and
Yeah.
they'll be the new people.
But if you lay it out here, then it wouldn't be left up to the board to decide. It would just be as is.
Okay. So do we need to clarify how that's going to be laid out, or?
I understand it. I don't know if
Okay.
is council clear on that?
I am, yeah. We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. Belinda, are you good with that? It'll rotate, yeah? Okay. Okay, so moving on to page 8, any other items on there that council would like to discuss? Nothing? Okay. Moving on to page 9. The only question I had was the executive committee. I'm not sure who the executive committee would be. And I'm on 5.02.
So that's if the board of directors wanted to set up a subcommittee for a specific project. So if they had 3 board members working as a working group on, say, the any different priority, so then
Okay.
it didn't have to come back. Every little decision didn't have to go. It would be a working committee basically under the board of board members.
For the executive. Okay. Okay, is everyone good with that? I have a caller that's on. If you could please mute your mic, please. Or is someone have the power to mute that, please?
Pardon me.
No problem.
I
Okay.
do. I just have to find it.
Okay, I'll just let
I put you in my pocket while I was bringing the dog in.
is it Michael? Oh, he's muted. Okay. Okay, moving on. Page 10. Oh, go ahead, Belinda. Sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Kistemaker.
I was just wondering if we could kind of change that executive committee to maybe mention that it's a subcommittee. I just found it a little confusing, like to say how you said it, Stacy.
Like a working committee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I- 'Cause- 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 'cause-
So change it to working committee. And then do we need the chair of the board to be on that on the working committee? I'm forward thinking here. I don't want to sign myself up for more meetings.
I wouldn't think so. I think as long as the board, like the board of directors agrees to the 3 people, I don't see why it would have to be chair.
Okay.
You can take that out. You like?
Are you in agreement with that, council? Is that we can set up, the board can set up a working committee and it doesn't have to include the chair of the board?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I do have a question about the chair and the vice chair. Can any, this is where I got confused about director member. So the chair or the vice chair would be one of the 5 directors, correct? Yes, okay. So I'm looking at 6.2, 6.3. That's where I was getting mixed up with member. I was thinking like anyone that was on the board would be a member.
Yeah, I think if we tidy up that language and make it all directors, I think it should
Fits, eh?
fit. Yep.
Okay.
That was the intention, that the vice and the chair would both be directors.
That's what I figured. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Paroff. Thank you, Gail.
There's no problem with having one of the councillors as a chair. That's okay with everyone?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not.
I haven't heard anything to the contrary from anybody, Stacy.
Unless you don't want it, because I was thinking I was going to get assigned.
No, I was just putting forth a question, that's all.
We can vote that in right now, council.
Oh,
Maybe it might be better not to have a council member as a chair. I don't know. Like,
that's the decision of council today and then in the future, because you're going to appoint the chair right now.
Yeah.
So the first chair
Yeah,
is appointed by council.
Yeah, I think we should appoint it to ensure that it stays on track while we do the changeover. That it aligns with us. Okay, and so we were on page 10 or 9. Any further comments on page 9? Okay, moving on to page 10. The only question I had was about the treasurer. Are we going to be using, like, I was kind of confused on how we're going to minimize costs for the bookkeeping of the MSC.
it'll just be a volunteer position like any other director.
Okay. We can't roll it in like we had with the NWMO committee where we had our treasurer taking care of it.
We could, but it's gonna be an awful lot of work and she doesn't have the capacity to take that on.
Okay.
I think
I'm just
you could do
concerned
it
it won't.
legally, but
We could do it
I
legally.
think you could do it legally, but I don't know how she could possibly manage.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that like this, doing this right now. I'm trying to figure out what legally we'll be able to do. Like if we acquired more staff at our end, then we could take that on, that sort of thing. I'm concerned about it being a volunteer, like we might need more services than that.
Well, and that's another thing is right now there's in 6.08, there's no remuneration for board members, but that doesn't mean council can't set an amount to remunerate.
Right, or we
I mean,
could,
it's
or
still-
the board
still
could
wouldn't be
hire,
like a salary, but yeah,
or the board could hire a bookkeeper,
correct.
like on contract. Go ahead, Stacy.
I think we'd have to check with our legal staff when it came to paying the treasurer. Usually on a nonprofit board, it's a volunteer. So I think we'd have to check on that if it wasn't our township employee.
Okay, but are we allowed to have a bookkeeper and then there is a treasurer who sits on the board? But I just find that's a lot of work to put, like, this could be potentially big dollars to be putting on a treasurer or a volunteer. So we have to get
I would say
clarification on
you
that.
could appoint, we can get clarification, but I would say you could appoint a bookkeeper because you can appoint auditors and you can appoint, I can't think of another example right at the moment, but you can appoint, there's another one that I had in my mind, but I'm sure you can, but we can definitely check on that for sure.
Okay, well, yeah, because I just see into the future, if we're going to accomplish what we can through this MSC, that'll be a lot.
involved. It's not
Yeah.
just going to be a title that somebody holds for sure.
That's right.
But a bookkeeper could be a staff member, and then the treasurer, they would report to the treasurer of the corporation.
Okay, well, we'll get
It's the
clarification on it.
corporation staff. Sorry, you just mean the corporation staff member, correct, Stacy?
I think she nodded yes.
For the bookkeeper, like if we were getting a bookkeeper, we could have a staff member that was the bookkeeper for the corporation. The treasurer would still report to the board and do the board duties as treasurer.
Okay. Okay, any further comments on page 10? I just have one question. Can the secretary and the project manager be the same person?
I don't know. Stace?
So the secretary doesn't have to be a board member. We can appoint the secretary. So it can be a board member or it can be a staff member. And when it came down to the secretary is directed by the board to follow out their orders. So it can be either staff or a board member. Just if you're getting a volunteer board member, sometimes to do the minutes and such, you're probably not going to get that.
Yeah, no, I don't think that would be the best way. It's just, I'm thinking like the project managers in the capacity of like executive director, and they usually are the ones that chair, or not chair, that are the staff, like the direct staff behind the meetings.
They wouldn't be a director. The secretary doesn't have to be a director. It doesn't have to be an executive position. It could be an appointed position of a staff or another board officer.
Right. So when we say staff, so it could be the project manager?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 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 So moving on to page 11. Any questions on page 11 for council? Okay. I just have one, Gail, for the insurance. Will we be purchasing insurance before they're formed to protect them?
I will have to double check on that to see what the best thing is to do. I'll check with our legal counsel on that.
Okay, just because it's, I think in 8.02, it talks about them getting insurance once they're aboard, but they'll already have been meeting, so. Okay, moving on to page 12. Any items on page 12? No, okay. Well, that was a lengthy document. Thank you, council, for going through it page by page, because this is how they're going to be governed. So we'll move on to bylaw number 2. And this is talking about the board meetings. Is there any comments for page 4, 5, 4 or 5, the definitions? No. And for board meetings, page 6. I thought this was pretty straightforward. I like that the board's going to meet 10 times a year. That's pretty standard, I think, eh? Okay, so I'm on to page 7. Any questions for page 7 of the bylaw? I'm noticing on 4.02 notice to the public, we talk about a corporation's website. Did we put that in the job description of the project manager to create a website? Yes, is that where that's coming from? Okay, Gail's nodding yes. Okay, so that can stay in there. Any other comments for page 7? Okay, let's move on. Page 8. Any comments for page 8 from council? Okay, I just have a couple little things. Gail, just 5.4, members of the board. For recording devices. And the other one is lack of quorum 6.03. I'm not, it's not making sense to me. Maybe I read it wrong, but it's the second sentence. If quorum is lost temporarily through the withdrawal of a board member due to a conflict of interest, then the meeting may continue, but no decision can be made on the issue that gave rise to the declaration of conflict. So how would we ever make the decision?
Yeah, you know what? That doesn't really make sense because I know for council, you can do that in that circumstance. So
Yeah.
I will change that to reflect.
Yeah, can
Yeah.
we? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and so moving on to page 9, if there's nothing left on page 8. And any comments on page 8? The only one that I have is for 7.01 availability, we're going to do electronically, right? Because it says the agenda will be accompanied by copies of supplementary material. Like that's all going to be electronic?
Yes, will be.
Yeah. Okay, just if we can reflect that. So, because we've been cutting down on paper. Any other comments on page 9? And page 10, pretty straightforward, eh? I don't think there's any comments there. Seeing none, we'll move on to page 11. Okay, any comments for page 11? Okay, we'll move on to page 12. I just have one comment. I'm looking at 10.04 and I have an unless use of video. Oh, it says all participants will identify themselves before making any comments if they're participating by electronic means. And I was just going to add that if they're using video, we don't. It's like this.
Correct. Yes.
Okay,
Sure.
so
That makes sense. Yep.
So we're down on section 11.01, the closed sessions, and they follow pretty much identical to ours, correct, Gail?
They do, and when I spoke to legal counsel, he said it's not absolutely necessary to do that, but he said that's the best practice, and he would recommend that that's what the board does, just to keep in line with, keep everything above board and accountable and transparent. So I put it in there because I think we should follow his advice, because we can get ourselves into some hot water pretty quickly, or the perception that you're doing something that's closed that should be an open.
Yeah, I think it's
just
good.
safer.
Yeah, and you know what too? The one thing I like about it, it really sets up for the community directors to get a real feel of what council's like. Because it follows the agendas and the meetings and everything will follow similar to our council meetings. Okay, there's nothing else on page. So moving on to page 14, that's just the continuation of closed session. And of course, page 15, confidentiality. And there'll be training and then they sign confidentiality forms, correct?
Yeah, we can provide the same type of training that we gave to council when they first started, and even if they want actual professional training, I mean, we can always arrange that as well.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we're on the last page, page 15. Just talking about the minutes. Okay. I don't see any, so we'll move on. There we go, right on. The meat and potatoes. So one question, we're moving on out to the asset transfer policy for the Township of Horn-Payne. Gail, could you refresh my memory? Do we have something like this currently?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, eh?
No. I mean, I could look back from a long time ago, but I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't, because you'd need the corporation to transfer it to, right?
Mm-hmm.
The I don't know if council wants to go through page by page. The only thing that I had out of this whole document, because it was really unfamiliar to me, this is the first time I had seen something like this, was that the Township of Horn-Payne shall review this policy, and it's every 5 years. I'm wondering if we should do a review of it before the end of this council, just to see if it works well for us. I'm not even sure how much of it'll be used by this council. So maybe if we went to like 5 years, that's going into the 3rd year of the new council. So maybe put it 4 years. I'm just trying to think logistically for.
I'd say definitely at least 3, because then the new council will have 1 year in.
Yeah. Maybe even 4. 4 might be better for them. Because then you'll have, I think this probably won't even be utilized as much until maybe year 2. Like at the end of year 2, maybe, I don't know, where we start transferring lands and that sort of thing. Well, maybe not. Maybe next, like if once those buildings come down. Anyway, that was the only thing I had, was I just thought it might be better to review it a little bit earlier to ensure that it's working properly. So we can leave it at 5, or we can, I think 4 would be the minimum, because you're going to give new council 2 years. What do you think, councillors? 4 years, Peter? 4?
Yeah,
Councillor Paroff, 4?
these are all working documents, so if there's something that comes up within that 4 years, you could still go through the board and make changes to it as necessary, right?
Yeah, and it does say at least once every 5 years, but
Yeah.
whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, I wasn't even sure, Gail, in your review of when policies have to be reviewed. We can leave it at 5 if that works for your system behind the scenes.
Well, being that this is a new thing, it might be better to do it a little sooner than 5 years. So
Okay.
if you could do it before the end of your term if you want, or alternatively, I would say 4 years and give the new council 2 years. The only thing that obviously is going to be transferred immediately is the apartments. And then we still have to do, the board will still have to do a housing strategy. And like you say, I'm not sure how much the policy will be used in addition to that in your time frame, but
Well, why don't we do it for 4 years, and then it's on there. It's and then they can look at it, and then that'll get them looking at the municipal court. Is there any other further discussion on the asset transfer policy? No? Okay, we'll move on. Conflict of interest policy. Okay, and the council or the members of the board would get training on this too? Yes, okay.
that's correct.
Okay. Any comments from council on this policy? None, okay. I want to address people to page 6, item 5.4D. The last sentence, it is not enough that a conflict of interest not exist. It must not also be seen by the public to be non-existent. That to me is, you can't know what the public's thinking. Like, I'm not sure if you would even be able to interpret that at some time. And that kind of makes me iffy that you might get a board member into trouble and they don't even know they're in trouble.
That's something that comes up in training all the time, that you have to look at things from the public's point of view. That's where they're getting, like, you may not think you have a conflict, but you know what's going on in the inside, and someone from the public may not, and it may seem to them. So if you think, the thinking is, if you think somebody may think you have a conflict, has good reason to think you have a conflict, then the advice is you should be declaring a conflict. That's how the training goes if you take professional training. So that's why that's in there. But
is that how it's written in the, is that how they suggest it be written for that?
Yeah.
It is not enough that a
It is.
conflict of
It
interest
is.
non-exist. Okay.
I mean, we can take it out if you're not comfortable.
No, I'm more concerned that it's, like I want to follow what the training and the guidelines is. It's just like if
It's
the
just making
member
sure that-
doesn't, go ahead.
I was just
Go
going to
ahead,
say, I think it's just really making sure that people are being seriously thinking about what they're discussing and seriously thinking about being accountable and transparent.
Right.
I think it's
For
just
sure.
another level, sort of.
Go ahead, Councillor Paroff.
I see your point, Mayor, but I also got to add that just seen by the public to be non-existent is a very dangerous avenue to go down, because anybody could say, "Oh, I see it as a conflict of interest," and then you're going to get into a big debate whether it is or isn't. I would kind of like to see it not there personally, or reworded. It's kind of confusing for me to read.
Maybe it is not enough that a conflict of interest not exist, but that the directors are aware, or a heavier term than aware, and weigh what the public sees, something like that, reworded something like that,
Consider.
or consider, yeah. Consider the public, consider the public's viewpoint of it.
It must also be seen by the public.
Yeah, that's that. I have to agree with John. That was the word, was non-existent. Like I can sit here and I know I don't have a conflict, but then it can be interpreted by, I don't know, so many different things.
Well, you can be anyways. I mean, whether
Yeah,
that
for
sentence
sure.
is there or not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think it needs to be there, but just reworded so that people know that, and board members know that they need to be taking into consideration what the public thinks, like of how they're being viewed as they represent the
that's
service
the
corp.
whole
Yeah.
objective. Yeah. I'll have to think about how to find that.
Yeah, like I'd like to see it in there, just not, I just find the language could really corner somebody. I'd just be concerned about getting our board members into an issue that's really a non-issue. Factor that.
You know what? That might be I have to look back. That might be the wording that's actually out there now.
Yeah.
In the act. I will double check it. I'm thinking
Okay.
that it is. I'll see if I can pull it up here while we're
Okay.
talking.
Yeah, and then in item E, number 3, or yeah, a factor which could be considered a conflict by the public should be treated as a conflict and be disclosed by the director.
No.
And that's completely up to the director. Like,
Yeah. Okay, sorry, where are you? I was on the
Um,
computer.
E, the same page on E, item number 3.
Yep.
A factor which could be considered a conflict by the public should be treated as a conflict and be disclosed by the director. But if the director doesn't see the conflict, like that's where, like,
Well, I
like,
think
I
again, it's just, I think that it's the emphasis just to make them really think if, I mean, obviously they're not going to declare it if they don't think there is one, but
mhm.
I think it's that we can take that one out. I mean, that one you could take out without affecting the importance of what the public might perceive.
Right. And there is going to be training, because we said it in
that would-
item A that there's training, that trained in the application of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Yes.
It's just we've run into this before, that there's perceived conflicts that aren't conflicts, and then there's real conflicts that aren't noticed. Not right now, but
Yeah. Well, it's a tricky topic.
yeah, and the key is good training, right? Just really good training to understand that your duties as a director. The only other question I have is, well, two of them on 5.5, page 7, you have recruce, page or item B. What does recruce mean? I guess I could have looked it up, but I just have it highlighted.
Recuse is like you take yourself out of the situation.
Okay.
So like if yeah,
Yep,
remove
that
yourself
totally-
from the discussion.
Okay, thank you for that, Gail.
Okay, so check.
Yeah, the only other thing is on that 5.5, right at the last paragraph, it talks about the board must be informed of all declarations of real, perceived, or potential conflicts of interest, and any measures taken by the chair, the project manager, or the council of the township of Hornpain to manage the situation. I was just wondering when and what would be a situation that we would have to be involved in.
I don't really know. I think it's probably there in case it does escalate that far. So that you have some, like, so that you're aware of it, number one. And then if you have to deal with it because you've appointed the board members, I'm thinking, you know, you may have to remove somebody, or you would have the power to do that. And then
Okay.
and then that's what I'm kind of thinking that means.
Okay, that totally makes sense to me. Yeah, because we would have the power to remove the board member. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, any other further comments on the conflict of interest? And these policies too, Gail, once they're in place from council's level, they stay, right? We change these ones, right? Not the board?
You know what? No, I don't think so. I think that you're gonna pass the bylaw to establish, and they actually pass their bylaws. So I think their policies, from what I understand, I mean, because their bylaws, they sign them. Now, these aren't bylaws, but I
I'm
don't
wondering-
know. I don't know for sure, because I know that we don't have to have these formally passed before we incorporate. We just have to have them done.
Yeah,
So then how do you document that? So I
Yeah.
did ask about that, but I'll double check on it.
can we get clarification on the asset transfer policy? Because we may need, like, that one is us transferring. That's not them, that's,
Well,
So
no,
I'm
that would be theirs. We would probably need one too, actually,
Yeah,
but that would
that's-
be
yeah.
theirs for when they just say take over houses that they want to rehab or whatnot.
okay, but we'll
So, yeah,
need our
right,
counterpart.
Yeah. That's a good point. I never even thought of that.
Okay, just so that,
Uh,
I'm just trying to think of how we're gonna work with each other so that it's,
Well, yeah,
it's
I don't
all
know. I'll
new.
ask about that because, no, we did talk about that because this is going to be an offer of purchase and sale. How the like a regular sale of land is how this transaction with the apartments will go through.
yeah.
So I don't think we need it for that, but yeah, maybe we do need one for other purposes. I'll ask
Yeah.
about that.
Okay, just because from council's end, when we transferred in, or even if it's a delegation of authority, if it's included in that for you. Okay, so we're moving on, council, to the procurement policy. And I have to say, I liked 4.8 about cooperative purchasing and about trying to buy local. Okay, this is where you had quarterly reporting. But that's to the board in 4.13.1. It's year-to-date expenditures shall be reviewed quarterly and then monthly starting in October until the year of end by the treasurer. Was that what you were thinking about quarterly reporting?
Probably, yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I knew I'd seen it somewhere in there.
Okay, I'm gonna go in chunks here for the procurement policy. So anything on the definitions, section 1, 2, 3. I'll just give you a few minutes or a minute. And this follows very closely to our current, like the one we use for the municipality.
It does. I just changed I lowered the dollar amounts for the different sections, like the RFQ and the verbal quotes and the written quotes, because I don't know, well, the budget's obviously going to be lower than what the municipal budget is, and I'm not sure what the budget is going to be and how much money will be available. So, I mean, this can always be changed as well, but
so could you just walk us through that page 15, Gail, on how that works out? Like, so under 2,500, they can just, the project manager can just make purchases, right?
yes, I
So
don't think
zero-
my page 15 is yours. Are you on the chart?
Yeah, I'm on the chart.
Okay, I don't know why, but
appendix
mine is
2.
staged differently.
Oh, I'm using the one that you gave me a few days ago.
The last page?
It's
The very last page?
this one here. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it on mine. It's that chart.
Okay, but it's
No,
the chart.
it's-
Okay, I'm on
Yeah,
chart.
chart.
So, oh, I'm on the wrong chart. Okay, so yeah, 0 to 25. So the project manager would have authority to spend that without any further discussion with the board unless, as long as it's within budget or approved in the budget.
Okay.
And then 0 to 5,000, they would have to get, they can purchase goods and services, but they'd have to have 2 written quotations.
Okay.
to
Should that
to
be?
compare.
Should it be 2,500 to 5,000? Or
Well, I think it depends on what they're doing.
Okay.
It could be, but I think you might sometimes want to get that. Depending on what you're doing, you might want to compare prices.
Okay.
So, but we can put that in there if you like. It's up to you.
no, I just wanted to. It was just a question to see. That's why I was asking you. Explain it to the rollout how it actually works. So if
Yeah.
so it just gives them more freedom in how that.
I mean, I guess they could do that whether it was written there or not, but.
Okay.
And then 5,001 to 25, so they'd be issuing an RFQ, request for quotations. So you're putting out not like an RFP. It's not as detailed. You're just looking for a costing for a project or a service.
Okay.
And then above 25,000 up to 150 would be request for tender. And then anything above that your request for proposals, which is then you're asking for what they're going to do for you and how they're going to do it, as well as what it's going to cost.
Okay.
So in ours, I don't have that in front of me right now, but I've knocked them all down to, I mean, you can still go up as high as you want in the end, but I've knocked down the money required. I've lowered the money required for the steps, for the first two
Okay.
steps.
Okay. And that'll give them enough freedom to do what they need to do.
I think so, because I mean, that, again, if once you find out that the operating budget, maybe it's going to be more than, you know, like I'm kind of thinking it's going to be minimal at the beginning. So this may not work a year from now or whatnot, and then it can be adjusted.
Okay. Sounds
if
good.
need be.
Okay, any other comments? Let's continue on, council. We kind of jumped around there a bit. So page 4, 5, just general provisions. Page 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't have anything on any of that. 11, 12, or did I miss 10, 11, 12? Okay, I have a question for 6, 3.1. So that the review and evaluation of this policy, so it's a living document for them, and then they should be able to review it and update it as they see fit later, because this is actually one of their policies.
Correct, yes.
Okay, okay. The one that caught my eye was 7.1.7. It's the wording. It kind of sounds like we're going to give it to one of these people and then just kind of get 2 quotations to stick in the drawer. And I thought we should just follow the process regardless of who's.
And regardless of the amount,
Yeah, like just make sure that we're following the process.
like just maybe just take, well, either.
Like if it's.
I would just take out the amount, I think.
Yeah, and to ensure
Because
that.
it's under 2,500, yeah, because under 2,500, technically, the project manager can purchase, right? So I think you have to have something in there, but maybe the $1,000 just kind of throws things off. If you're going to buy something from one of these people, then maybe it should be, take the amount out and 2 written quotations from other like outside entities or something like that.
Yeah, I like that. Like do your due
Should be-
diligence. You don't just award it to friends.
Purchases maybe.
And of
So
course
I'll
we
take
live in
that
a.
there.
Okay, and we live in a small community, so that does happen time to time, but.
From months, yep.
Are you seeing, council, where I'm referring to? 7.1.7?
What you're saying is no matter what, that you have to have 3 quotes.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that in this case, if it's going to a board member, an employee, immediate family, to do that process, to do the 3 quotes. And not just to get them, like actually ensure that it's fair. Like if you're, say I'm a board member and I'm hiring my sister and she's 3 times the price of the other 2 quotes, well, that's not due diligence. That's not right.
That's fair.
Anything on 12? Or sorry, I'm going backwards now. 14. That's all I had. Anything further for the procurement? Oh, sorry, I had one more question, Gail. And it might not be the same numbers as what you're looking at. For Appendix 4, the tender log, does that go with the back page of that, the description of irregularity? Does that go with the tender log, or is that another appendix? Because you referred to it in the bylaw. Sorry, I forgot about that. Just a second, I have it marked.
No, I would think it's separate. It's just no, it's a separate thing. It's just to list the tenders as they come in.
Okay, so if you go to page 10, under bid irregularities 5.5.1, you're just gonna have to change your appendix, because your appendix takes you to the log, the tender log. And I wasn't sure if that tender log and the irregularities were all one, so I wasn't sure.
Okay, so for C appendix, bid irregularity, C appendix 4.
That's a lot of work. Thank you guys for doing all this work.
Okay, so appendix 4 is procurement policy. Sorry, what am I doing?
Yeah, appendix 4 is the log, the tender log.
Oh.
So it should be appendix.
So bid irregularities, I have. Yeah, what do I have? I'll have to look at that because my pages didn't print properly, so I'll have to look at it on the computer, but I'll straighten it out.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking it'll be appendix 5. It's the next one, but.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Let's get through. We've got 2 more to do here. So we have the position of director. Is there anything that you want to highlight in here, Gail? I do see that you have some highlighting in the document.
Stacey, are you able to speak to that? Stacey's the one that did most of the work on, well, all of the work on that one. So
Okay.
probably better able to speak to it.
Okay, I'll just, if there's anything you want to.
I think if there's any questions or comments from council, that I can address them.
Okay, so. So I guess the question is, the yellow highlighting is just after we adopt the bylaw, it'll just be in there. Is that all it's highlighted for? Okay, that's my. Okay, I open up the floor for council. So if we're in agreement on this position of the director, this is the page that we're giving direction for Gail to give notice for. I'm using the wrong word, I know I am, so.
Advertise.
Advertise, thank you. I miss you sitting beside me, I'm sorry. These online meetings are getting to be very difficult sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell you quietly right now.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
like give me an elbow, Cheryl.
Oh, pretty soon, hopefully.
Okay, and then for the term, you'll put the same wording that we had discussed earlier. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we want to appoint a chair and a member of council to the board as well. Did you want to do that tonight, Gail? Do you want to know those names tonight, or was that on the 17th of February?
Well,
For
we'll
some
do
reason
the
I had a
paperwork
note.
on the 7th. we'll do the
Okay.
paperwork on the 17th because I didn't prepare any resolution for that. But
Okay.
if you want to talk about it, then that would be
Okay.
good.
Okay, do we have, first we'll go through the position of the director. And no questions or comments for Stacy? It's pretty straightforward. Thank you, Stacy. So who would like to step up for the position of counselor? I have no problem sitting in on the board and chairing. I think that might be appropriate right now. We're just starting out. Is that an agreement from council? Good. Okay. Councillor Paroff?
Yeah, no, that's good.
Good. Okay. Did no one else race to the finish line there?
I will, I'll participate, I think, for a while.
Okay.
If that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, we need a second counselor to participate. Are we good to move forward with that? John will participate on the board. Belinda, did you want to participate on the Housing Corporation? You're on mute.
It doesn't matter. My thing is I want this to work. So it's important. And you two are capable of making it work. So, but I'll be bugging you.
Oh. Well, we'll be bugging you too because you're our link to ADSAP. So, okay, we'll go with that for now. Any further discussion on description? We're good to move forward then. So the last is, I want to ensure I'm on the last document for this portion, is draft bylaw. Did I miss anything, councillors? I was going by my paper copies. No? Okay, so we're at the draft bylaw.
Before you go there,
Yes.
Melissa has something she'd like to say, but she doesn't have a camera tonight.
Oh, okay.
I just want to go back to the procurement policy for a second. When you guys suggested taking out the $1,000 for getting 2 quotes for $1,000, I just think that maybe that $1,000 should just be put back in there, because if the program or project manager wanted to go and purchase like a stapler or bundle of paper or something like we did with John when he was closing up his office, I think it would be unnecessary work to have to go and get 2 or 3 quotes for something that's $50 or $100.
Oh, good call. Yeah, definitely. So it's a minimum of 1,000. Anything be above that. Okay, good call, Melissa. Thank you for that.
I mean, that could be 500 or whatever you'd like to make it, whatever you think is reasonable.
Council, what do you think is reasonable? I do agree with what Melissa's saying. We can't tie the person down that they can't even buy. Is it 1,000 and they have to get the quotes? And if it's, go ahead, Councillor Paroff.
I think 1,000 is good because the board will pick it up anyways. If it's any major expenses, the board will pick it up. So I think to leave it at 1,000 is my point.
Okay, we're good with that. Thank you, Melissa. Okay, moving on now to the draft bylaw. I thought it was very thorough. It gives almost like a mini history. I am good with the way it reads. I open it up to council.
I like
Did you have
that.
any? I think Gail, you had a suggestion. Did you want to change something in it?
Well, Councillor Paroff had brought something to my attention the other day, and I just wanted to, I don't have that paper on me right now, but was there something that you wanted to add? I just don't remember quite what it is.
No, I don't think it was on this document.
Okay, I'm gonna have a look and see if I can find what, maybe I'm just confused.
Oh.
Go ahead, Councillor Paroff.
Yeah, sorry, I do have a couple notes on it.
You're working your technology now, aren't you?
I am.
Calling you out on that.
On the third one, whereas down, it says the MSC will be responsible for addressing housing issues in community. And it goes to the next one. I'm just asking, does this mean that the township has no input into the housing needs for Hornpain?
So I had answered, John, I don't know if you have my responses there. I printed that out specifically to bring to the meeting, and I don't know, my desk is so messy, but I had provided you with responses. Originally, he was not going to be able not to attend, so that's why I was responding to him. And I was going to bring the issues up on his behalf, but now that he's here, I don't. But if you have my responses, then maybe that's something council can discuss.
Actually, they're on my other email and I don't have access to it.
Well, my response to that one was the township would have input, because not only do you have two members on board, but you've set the objectives and the mission and the vision. I just don't know that I'll remember my other ones, and I wish I knew what I did with it. I had it just before the meeting. I'll keep looking.
Yeah, I think the goal would be is to set good, like, I think that's why we're going through the paperwork today. You want to set good policy and procedures in place to empower that board to be able to really concentrate on housing, right? So we wouldn't want to be like, we want to update those objectives when we come to them and ensure, oh, she's found it. We're in luck.
Okay, I found it. So I'll just read this out, because I was going to do that if you weren't there anyway. So I said to answer the first question was council and township would have say over the housing strategy, as there's two members of council will sit on the board. The board will be addressing the needs in the housing needs and demand study. And the board will be reporting back to council regularly, which means council could speak up if they were concerned about the direction. And then number two, the township should consider owning the asset and have the MSC manage it. And I said, from my understanding, the MSC would have to own the asset in order to have freedoms to operate the way in which council wishes and to be eligible for various funding programs, etc. In essence, the township would own it as they are the only shareholder in the MSC, but it would be at arm's length. And the next question was about objectives. That wasn't in the draft. That was in, maybe you've already covered that one. It was in the objectives. Let's see. Objects, sorry, not objectives. It was in bylaw number 1. and it was section 201. You asked, oh, you just asked me to explain. So, and that's referring to the objects of the corporation are as outlined in its letters patent dated, and I have insert date of incorporation, or as amended thereafter upon adoption of a business case by the Council of the Township of Horn Plain on October 21st, 2020. So I said we would need to insert the date of incorporation or letters patent in this section once the MSC is established. They would outline the objectives, and we don't have that information yet. And then you asked also about the June 30th date of the annual report, and Stacy has explained that it's due to the auditing. Board appointments. What was your question? Question was, should the township consult with the board or at least the chair to ensure the stability and continuity of the board to avoid any conflicting interests? And I said, it's a requirement of the Municipal Act that council appoint board members. And then I said we could have a conversation with Carlo, and he might have some good insight on who might be good to appoint. And then the last question was, oh, the board terms. You asked about what we were thinking about there. So I just said it needed to be discussed at council, and it was left blank on purpose. So I thought you brought up some really good points, and thank you for doing that. And by the way, Councillor Stefanik did ask for the documents in hard copy, and I did supply them with him, and he did respond to me today. And he didn't have any real issues. He just was noted that we talk about the term of the board directors.
Okay, great. Okay, so back to the draft bylaw that we're looking at. The one thing that I was looking at was the fourth paragraph where we talk about the HEDC. I was wondering if we could use, because this is going to be in our minutes forever now, and just to highlight, like maybe the sentence instead, the HEDC has been a landlord of the Parkview Apartments for almost a decade. Something to the effect that like it was forward thinking on their part to take over those apartments at that time, something of that effect.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Like we need to focus on housing. So that was the only thing. Go ahead, Gail.
I was just going to say just to give credit where credit's due.
Yes, for sure. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, any other further comments on the resolution? Have we covered everything? This is pretty important stuff there, Council. First time we've ever created a municipal service corp in Horn Plain. Hopefully that's one of another, maybe this will be the first of one more. Go ahead, Gail.
So just so you know, legal counsel's working on the offer of sale and purchase for review at the next meeting. I don't have any documents yet, but he's working on that. So.
Okay. So no further discussion on the bylaw? Everyone's good with that? That's the bylaw that we'll see at the February 17th meeting. Okay, I'm seeing consensus. Belinda, are you good with everything there? Good, okay. Okay, we do have another item of discussion. I'm wondering if council would like a 5-minute break to get some stretching and some water. Go ahead, Gail.
Just wanted to make a comment that at the last meeting, just the thought that was left at the end of the last meeting was this next topic of discussion would be left to the board to decide if they wanted to participate. So I don't know if there's going to be, if council wants to have much of a discussion or if there's a need to. And if there is, that's fine. But that was sort of the advice that we had gotten last time. It would be simpler and easier. And everybody seemed to be sort of in general agreement about that. So just something to think about. And then this meeting had already been set up, so it was already on the agenda.
Okay. Well, I think what we were, that the board could decide whether they wanted to invest and go after their own funds for that, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So do we want to leave it at that, council? Do we want to give any, are we favorable in the board doing that? Pete, yes? Okay. Well, we'll probably, John and myself, as the representatives on this newly formed board, when it does create, we'll probably come back and have discussion at council with this to ensure that everyone's on board with that. So maybe we don't need a break. Any further discussion on 5.2? We'll leave that up for the newly formed board to decide. Okay, go ahead, Gail.
I just wanted to say before we close, I wanted to thank everybody, every council member for taking the time to really go through the documents. It's nice to be able to make these changes that you've asked for and to have them ready for the next meeting. I'm excited to move forward with this. So thank you very much. I know it's time consuming.
Thank you, Gail. Yeah, well, time's consuming on your end too, and I think we're going to be off to a good start. So I leave the floor here before we move on. Is there anything further that we want to discuss about the Municipal Service Corp? Not seeing one. Thank you, council. And we have a confirmatory. And if I can get a mover and a seconder for it, please. Peter and John. Okay, moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by John Paroff. Be it resolved that bylaw number 1838, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at their special meeting of council held on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021, be hereby read a first and second time and be considered read a third time and finally passed. Those in favor? And that is carried. And if I can get a mover and a seconder to close. Peter and John. Belinda wants to stay. And thank you, Gail, for piping in and telling us, reminding me. Thank you. We didn't have to take a break and we could close. So moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by John Paroff. Be it resolved that we do adjourn the special meeting of council held on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021 at 8:08 p.m. All in favor? Whew, that's carried. Well, thank you, council. I hope you enjoy a good night. Stay safe, stay well. Practice protocols.
Okay. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
This conference is no longer